Africa is literally sitting on a gold mine, and I'm not talking the old school gold rush. I mean critical minerals that the entire world is scrambling over. But here's the catch. While we seem to have all these critical minerals, we aren't seeing enough jobs on the continent. And I'm not talking small jobs, I mean real opportunities. Big tech factories, engineering, real big money stuff. So here's the question. If Africa has all these critical minerals that the entire world seems to be obsessed over, where are the jobs on the continent?
And I think there's a growing global recognition that we need to have supply chains for critical minerals that are reliable and diverse across the world.
Africa in the end needs to act as one, because what we should be avoiding is a new form of colonialism. It is now time for Africa to do business on its own terms.
Greetings from Johannesburg, South Africa. This is Africa Explained.
So what we're seeing here today is yet another scramble for raw materials from the global south, similar to what we've seen during colonial times. And to be honest, after independence, we never really escaped that colonial trap, which is for Africa to be the provider of cheap raw materials for the industrialized world, for us to be the consumers, not the producers, of technologies and industrial output from the industrialized world.
Now, if this all sounds familiar, girl, it's because we're basically in colonialism 2.0. All of the world's major technological advancements, such as AI, renewable energy, advanced military tech, and electric cars, all need critical minerals from countries such as the DRC, which controls the majority of the world's cobalt, to Zambia and Zimbabwe, which are massive with copper and lithium, and South Africa, which is big in platinum. Stuff most of us barely notice, but quite literally power the future. And we have an abundance of it right here. Here's the kicker. Having the minerals is the simple part. The big money, and where the real money lies, is extracting those minerals and turning them into the tech. And most of that happens outside of Africa. No! Behind the scenes, Africa Explains Zikia has been talking to experts, connecting the dots, and getting the full story on exactly what is happening right here in Africa.
So the deal we've seen in the DRC, Rwanda with the Trump administration, was so-called the Peace for Minerals deal or Security for Minerals deal, is not really a deal that benefits the African continent. It gives the United States the upper hand in this wave of extractivism from the African continent. It sets the standard also for the rest of the continent in terms of what are the terms of engagement that the U.S. is looking to impose in Africa.
We found something interesting. After COVID and the Russia-Ukraine war disrupted global supply chains, the entire world woke up. These countries looked around and said, girl, we can't depend on anybody anymore. But with China already dominating refining, the EU, US, and even some Gulf countries are scrambling to play catch up on the scramble for Africa's critical minerals. Feels like deja vu? Well, child, it's because we've been here before.
It is clear that Africa has rich geological deposits in an array of minerals that everybody in the world needs, especially as we attempt to transition to a lower carbon future. And much of the race or the quest for Africa's minerals, if you like, is a function of geopolitical fragmentation. Part of this was precipitated by COVID. So European and Northern American countries are trying to reduce their dependence on China and so are trying to gain access directly to Africa's resources.
Hence, competition in the race for critical minerals is between the United States and China. But while the US and Europe have been asleep effectively for the last 20 or 30 years, China managed not only to have access to critical minerals in the mining sector in the African continent and across the global south, but China mastered the technology of refining critical minerals to the level of purity needed to become actual inputs into the high-tech industry.
The latest plot twist in all of this is that China has decided to remove tariffs on goods on 53 African countries, cementing itself as a long-term, reliable partner, the exact opposite of the US.
The interesting thing is that China already has the requisite relationships in place where it's not per se racing for the same level of access or security of supply chains for critical minerals. But very broadly, this is a soft diplomatic move by China to say, we are a reliable, secure trading partner. We're not going to, impose a bunch of conditions. We're not going to turn our backs on African governments. And we're just a group of people you can do business with and a government you can do business with. That is a complete opposite message right now coming from the Trump administration.
Now you might be thinking, cool story, bro, but why should I care? Well, if we keep exporting raw materials at the rate which we have been, all of the high-paying jobs, engineers, technicians, factory workers will all continue to be exported to other countries. In fact, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, otherwise known as Cupcake, has made it clear that governments do want to move away from just exporting raw materials. So Zikia went behind the scenes to find out what a better deal could realistically look like. And this is what the experts had to say.
I'm not entirely persuaded that a unified African position would actually serve African countries unless continental interests perfectly aligned with national interests. The difficulty with that is that each country has a much more powerful incentive to preserve their own self-interest than to play by any kind of continental rule book, as it were.
I think, the ideal scenario over the next one or two EU summits, and certainly over the next few years, is that we have either continental or regional collective understanding of what a minimum trade deal should entail. So very much what I was talking about with China's very smart long-term plan around whether it's airports, bridges, ports, road and rail, that should become baked into any kind of basic agreement with an African government, with a regional body, to say that this is not going to be an extractive and exploitative relationship.
So here's the deal. The world needs Africa's minerals, and they need it fast. So this gives us huge leverage. But leverage without playing it right is completely useless. So we have to ask ourselves, do you want to continue being the continent that ships out all the raw materials while the rest of the world gets to have all the fun building the future? Or do you want to take control and build industries and take our piece of the global pie? So the scramble has started again, y'all. But this time, the outcome is still ours to decide.